Hey everyone, and welcome to another video from the Parrott Bros. I'm Dom, and today I'm going to talk you through the technical and the installation of water methanol injection. Now this of course is a very simple setup from Devil's Own, very analog, very easy to work with. However, depending on which company you buy from, you could buy an Aquamist, AEM, there's loads of different companies out there and they all work slightly differently. This one is a very primitive system with no particular digital foolproofs or anything like that. However, very simple to fit, and for basic application, just to bring the temperatures down, it is bang on. So before we get stuck into the details and I show you how it's fitted, let's jump to that intro. Now what I'll do is talk you through each individual steps. I've listed them as 1, 2, we'll do 3 and 4 and 5. And then we'll talk through each individual one, and then I'll show you as we go, just so you don't get left behind. Now, like I said, this is a Devil's Own system, very, very simple to plumb in, as you'll see in a minute, and I'll try and find some pictures and some wiring diagrams for some more complicated ones, which may require a little bit more technical knowledge for fitting, but this one is very simple and it's something you could do at home yourself. You may need to get a few little bits done by other people, but you'll see as we go. So, right, let's start right at the very beginning. This is in the engine bay. You're going to be fitting a switch or a contact. Now, the way this switch works is when it sees boost, so when you put your foot down and you give it a load and the turbo comes on, you'll build up, let's say for argument's sake, 20 psi. You've got a MAP 225, you're going to build up 20 psi. Now you can set this valve to whatever psi you want between, I think it's 6 and 30. So let's say we fit it at 15. So as soon as you get to 15 psi, it's going to send the signal to tell the meth to turn on. Now this is very, very simple to wire up. It literally needs one silicon 3mm boost pipe onto a nipple on the bottom, and it has 2 cables going to it. One that comes from the battery on the negative, and the other one goes away and it goes to the relay. So that is stage 1. I'll go to the car and let's have a look. Okay, so that is the solenoid or the switch or contact measuring the PSI. Now I actually have a pipe going through it, so this blue one goes in and then a black one comes out because it's on like a little T-piece, and that runs off to my boost gauge inside the car. And as you can see just on the top there, there's 2 cables which just have one's the ground from the battery and the other one is the one that goes off into where the relay is. And there's a wheel, you can't really see it very well, but there's a wheel just there behind it. And you can see there it just says 6, 15 and 30 psi. You just sort of wind that till you get to the point in which it is where you want it to be. Now I've measured that by using I took the boost pipe off and I measured it using a compressor set at 15 psi. It may be slightly adjusted when we go for a map, but that is the solenoid. The battery negative is just there, the ground, so that goes through and into one side, and then it goes from there into the car, into the relay. So you've seen stage 1, let's move on to stage 2. So we already know we have a signal that when you hit your set PSI, so say 15 PSI, this closes and then sends a signal and tells the meth to come on. Everything's okay, you've met that part of the system. Now you have a relay. Now relays, if you don't know, and please skip past this if you do, relays are a very simple way of using a small amount of current to switch on a larger supply. So let's say, for instance, lights, like I've said, you've got a big set of lights on the top or some fog light spots in the middle, and they take quite a lot of current, they draw a lot of amps. That makes it very hard because a lot of switches don't like toggle switches and stuff, don't like large currents, whereas relays are made, they have a 12 volt supply, which then energizes the coil, which then shuts it and creates the circuit. There's loads of great videos on YouTube if you want to see how a relay works, but basically you have a ground, you have a permanent 12 volt supply, a switch live 12 volt supply, and then you have the feed going away once the relay is switched. So this relay I have fitted behind the glove box, and it's got a permanent supply with a fuse going to underneath the driver's side. It has a switch live which goes to the driver's side, and then it has the pump feed. Now when it gets a ground, it then energizes the coil, which then puts a feed to the pump. Let's go and have a quick look at the relay and how the wiring is. Like I said, it's very simple. There's only 4 wires, they're color-coded. Once you've worked out the numbers of the relay and what they do, very, very easy to wire up. Next we have our relay fitted here, just in there with the 4 coloured cables. You've got yellow, black, white and blue. There is red, but I think red isn't used from memory. There was one that wasn't used, which is the centre one. And that is solely brought from, so we've got a permanent live, a switch live, a ground, and then the feed to the pump. So now we've done our boost switch, we've done our relay, so now we know how we're going to get power to the pump. Now let's have a look at the pump itself. The pump has 2 cables and 2 plumbing pipes. So it needs a 12-volt supply and a ground, and then it needs liquid coming in, liquid going out. There's an arrow on the bottom of the pump which shows the direction of travel. For argument's sake, I've just split the pump into 2. So this side's the electrical side, this side is the water side. So we know we've got our feed coming in when it tells the pump to start. Now this literally, the ground is permanent, the ground's always on, it's just the 12-volt supply that's switched. So as soon as that gets 12 volts, the pump will buzz into life, and then you'll have the methanol coming in into the engine. Now the pump can be mounted any which way. It has rubber feet on because it does vibrate and shake a little bit. So it has 4 rubber mounted feet. You can mount it upside down, sideways, invert, hanging off. Now I've actually made a template, which I'll show you in a sec, where I've mounted it behind the rear passenger sort of armrest / door pocket thing, because I didn't want too many things on the rear seat delete. I just wanted the tank so I could easily fill in. I could have hidden it, but for ease of use, for the time being, that is an absolutely fine position. Let's go and have a look at how the pump's wired and the connections to it. As we move on to the pump, we have the supplies, and what they do is they go over the top, and then I have here both my liquid supply and the power run separately. One's in conduit, as you can see just there, and they run here underneath the carpet, and they come out here and then run round the back. Like I said, insulated. And then we've got the pump mounted on my lovely bracket. So the pump, like I said, is mounted upside down. I've got that lovely bracket which hides it behind the sort of the door card as such. And it's got a liquid feed coming in on the right-hand side and going out on the left. Of course, the travel is the opposite direction, but this pipe loose here is going to be going into my tank. And then I've got my supply mounted on top there, the positive coming from the front, the ground coming from the back. And then I've got that plug laying on the floor there with the blue cable in is my level sensor ground. Again, the ground coming from the back and the black going to the front, which is going to go to an LED when I install it. Now, as you can see there, the pump is mounted on rubber feet. So when it starts to move, it has a little bit of give and it can vibrate away and it won't cause any problems. It won't make any noise or anything like that. A nice little hidden install. So now you've seen how we get the PSI signal, how the power works, how the pump is installed and how that runs. And then we have the methanol tank itself. Now this is a very, very simple tank. Has a lid on the top, which then you put your methanol in, and it has a low point, and then it has a slightly higher point where I've fitted a low level switch. So the tank itself is just mounted to my rear seat delete, very, very simple. I've got the sensor, which tells me when it's running out higher than the actual nipple where the liquid comes out, because then it will tell me when it's starting to run out before it actually runs out, so I know in advance. You could also just turn around and have a look, but if you're on, say, a track day or a long road trip and you're given it, you may not have the time to just look back whilst driving. A tank of meth, depending on the size of the tank, could last you a few hundred miles, could last you a few laps on track. It really depends on how it's mapped, how it uses it, what size nozzles you have, and all of that kind of stuff. But you'll get a feel for it. The switch, which I have not drawn on, is, again, very similar to this. So it has a ground, and then it goes into the switch, and then that goes away to an LED, and then I have a 12-volt supply to the LED. As soon as that switch drops, because the liquid is gone, it completes the ground, and then you get a light on the dash. Now, I haven't fitted that yet, so I can't show you, but just trust me when I say about the level sensor. You don't have to have it, it is entirely up to you. Then, so that meth goes, literally fill it in the top, most people mix it 50-50 if you're using, so it's 50% methanol, 50% deionized water, because then that takes away the flammability of it, because methanol as a substance just on its own is very, very flammable, very, very volatile, but mixed with 50% deionized water makes it not as dangerous to have. And also when it hits the engine, it goes super cold and it will bring your intake temps down massively. So before I show you the engine, let's go and have a quick look at how the tank's mounted and around it. Like I said, fills from the top. That's where the methanol comes out at the bottom. And then just slightly higher than that, I have the level sensor. Now if I show you, if it will show, inside there is the level sensor. And what will happen is as that goes level, that will close the contact, which will then put the LED on. And when it's filled with liquid, it will point upwards, and then the connector will no longer be connected, and it won't be sending a signal through to light the LED up. So what is going to happen is, when I've finished, I'll just pop the feed for the water round and through here, and then it will loop round the back and go into my hidden pump, along with this connector, which will run through to my level sensor LED, which I'll fit at a later date. So last but not least, we have it now coming from the pump, from the tank, and we've got this beautiful methanol injection, 50% water, 50% methanol, and it's come into the engine. Now, where does it go? You want it to go, dependent on the kind of system you run, there's a few options. You can just run like me, one, which you want about 18 inches from the inlet manifold, because it comes out in a spray mist, and what you don't want to do is if you have it too close, it may not have the time for the mist to get into the air, cool the air down. It may just spray and then the water will dribble into your inlet and things like that. So you want it 18 inches, you basically want it just after the intercooler. I'll show you in a second how I've got it fitted. And you have other options. You can have two, so you could have one at the inlet manifold and one down at the intercooler. You have a smaller one up here and a bigger one down here. You can have direct ports. You could have 4 nozzles mounted into each individual port of your inlet manifold. It all depends on what it is you're trying to achieve. If you're going for maximum power, you're going to run like a 75% meth, 25% water, because you want to try and up the octane, then you're probably going to go for the 4. It really all depends on the setup you've got. I just want to bring my intake temps down. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because my engine, let's say for instance, it's 30 degrees outside, which in England only happens for about a week a year. But if it's 30 degrees outside, my engine is going to see 40-degree air temperature. Because if you imagine you're driving through the air outside is 30 degrees, but the engine's warmer. So as the air comes in, all the pipes in the engine bay are going to be warmer, so it's going to raise the temperature a little bit. And then when it passes through your intercooler, that 30-degree air is going through, it ain't going to cool it down any more than 30. So you end up getting sort of 40-degree air temps, which is crap. The car runs like crap. Whereas when you have this set up, you could bring this down to somewhere in the region of like 10 degrees or less. So it's like driving on a winter's morning. So it is absolutely amazing for best bang for buck. Turbo cars love cool air. So it is a bit of a must. Let's go and have a quick look at the engine, and I'll show you how it's mounted, where it's mounted, and the other places it could be mounted. Now we're at the powerhouse. We've got our intercooler just here. The pipe comes round, and I've had this boss welded in where the jet is going to go. Now I haven't actually fitted it yet because I wanted to test the system and be able to see the spray in this pipe before I wound this out. But basically, I'm going to take this nozzle and this one-way valve and the fitting for it, and basically mount that like that into this pipe, and then I can trim this, which comes from the tank, to length, and it will fit nice in there. This is just a bit of excess. And then that will spray an atmosphere mist of water into the pipe, and then it'll have all this time to come round here, up behind the headlight, and it comes up here and then into your inlet manifold. And then it'll have nice cool air. Like I said, there is other options. You can put a port in here, 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 and here. You could also fit a sandwich plate here with an additional one. So you have a smaller nozzle here and a bigger nozzle down there. So then you get, to cool it down, you get this one extra little boost as well. It all depends on who your mapper is and what they recommend. Now, I hope you found that helpful. I hope this hasn't been too technical. I've tried to draw it up as simple as possible and of course showing you each individual step of how it's fitted in the car. If you have any questions or if you'd like to know any information, like always, down in the comments and I'll be more than happy to answer those. Like I said, this is a very, very simple system. There is a lot more technical ones. There's ones with fail-safe, so as soon as the meth gets to a certain level and stops coming through, or the pump fails, or the pump turns off, or anything like that, it will literally change the map or put your car into limp mode, all that kind of stuff. So there's loads of levels above this. This is just the most simplistic on-off system, and I'm only using it as meth assist, so I'm trying to bring the temps down. It's a bit like back in the old days where the Subarus used to spray water onto their intercooler to try and cool it down whilst driving. That's the sort of the principle of this, is to try and bring your air intake temps down. I'm not looking for more richer fuel. I am solely looking for cooler air intake temps, because with this little turbo running the boost it's running, it does get quite hot. So I wanted a nice simple setup, nothing too technical, very, very easy to see. I hope you've enjoyed seeing that. Like I said, if you've got any questions, down in the comments. If you want to have a look at the kind of system and the systems available, I've put all of them down in the description to this video, along with our website, all our social media, so go check it out. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and if you've not already, don't forget to subscribe and click that bell icon. Thanks again for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.